Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men and women, non-conformers and non-believers, gender X and gender equals, welcome to the second launch, the live international launch of The Storms, a new journal of poetry, prose and visual art. My name is Damien B. Donnelly, and about just over 2 years ago, I started the poetry podcast Eat the Storms. It went out on about 3 platforms with just little old me reading from my debut poetry pamphlet, Eat the Storms, because it was lockdown and it felt like no one was going to be able to hear my voice or know that I had a collection out that had been a life's ambition. The second episode, I was joined by Gaynor Kane. And from then on, it grew exponentially to the point where I've just finished season 5. I'm already taking guests to put on the list for season 6. Heads up to anybody in the audience who wants to take part in season 6. And since then, we have had over 375 international guest poets join us, spread across 5 seasons. And we have also been nominated for a Saboteur Award. So at the beginning of this year, when it was time to apply for funding for support from places like the Arts Council here in Ireland, and also from the local Fingal County Council, I decided that perhaps it was time to put poetry back down on the page, combine it with prose and visual art. And I'm really astounded at what we now have in front of us. This exceptional journal of extraordinary talents that, again, very much like the podcast, has managed to connect so many different artists all around the world. And since we started out sending our contributor copies, it has found so much love. So thank you to everybody who took part. Thank you to everybody who cheered, supported, who contributed. Thank you to the Arts Council in Ireland here for the Agility Award. It's my second Agility Award in 2 years, so beginning to feel a little bit of pressure on the shoulders. Thank you also so much to the Fingal County Council and the Fingal Arts. It's also my second artist support scheme. So again, a little pressure on the shoulders, and now even more pressure because we have to open submissions very shortly for issue 2. Now, unfortunately, most of you who have taken part and who are in the Zoom room this evening to read will not be eligible to submit for the second. This is so that we continue to have a variety of voices in every issue. The first issue was, of course, all about blind submissions, as will the second. Myself and Gaynor read over 700 submissions about every type of weather, every type of storm, every story of survival. It was exceptionally difficult to cut it down because there was really an extraordinary amount of high standard quality prose, poetry, and artwork. Thankfully, I guess what helped in the end was having a theme. The theme was Eat the Storms, and that meant that we could only have a certain amount of poems about snow, thunder, rain, clouds, and lightning. However, I think there are probably many journals that we could still make with those who we had to say no to. And so it's for that reason that we will open up the second issue to people who did not appear in the first. Now, of course, as you're going to find out in the coming weeks, I will have a new sub-editor for joining me for the second issue. Again, this is to ensure that there continues to be a variation, a variety in each of the issues. But I cannot even talk or move on to the next sub-editor without acknowledging the absolute stellar support, the light, the joy, the laughter, the determination, the bold, brave brilliance that is Gaynor Kane. She said yes when I asked would she be the sub-editor without a single hesitation. And it really has been an exceptional journey to share it with this exceptional person. And just a side note before we move on, Gaynor's new poetry pamphlet, 8 Types of Love, was published by the Hedgehog Poetry Press on the 30th of July. It is now available to purchase at www.gaynorkane.com. And also a very belated happy birthday to Gaynor. Love ya. Now, before I begin, Before we begin this evening, I just want to say a huge shout out and a thank you to Walsh Colour Print in County Kerry here in Ireland, who did an absolutely stellar job of printing this journal. I am absolutely thrilled to have a journal printed here in Ireland, but that is packed with so many international contributors. Now, before we begin, just a couple of Zoom rules. Please make sure you stay on mute. At the end of each section, we'll come off and cheer for those who have read before we start a new section. Feel free to add comments in the chat box here in the center of the screen. I will be adding the bios of every contributor while they are reading. We have a packed show this evening, trying to get as many people who are contributors to this inaugural issue to read as possible tonight. So therefore, I won't be doing a long introduction to each artist. Instead, what we're going to do is go through the book from page 1 to the final page, call out the name of each contributor. If they are here, they get to read. If not, we'll move on and go to the next person. And as I said, while they are reading, I will add their bios and a link to some of their social media handles or else to their website. Midway through the evening, we will also have a dedicated section that will celebrate our visual artists with a little video to share their work. And then at the end of the evening, if we have time, any of the guests who read at our Dublin launch, which was at the casino in Marino, thanks to the Office of Public Works on the 21st of August, will also get to read their piece. So without much further ado, let us get started. Welcome to the international second launch of The Storms, our new journal of poetry, prose and visual art.
So this is The Seekers. In the fields beyond your parents' house, we searched out each other's hot, bitten flesh in an urgent boil as foreign to me now as words I used to know in other languages. In that long summer, when time was ours to take and chew as idly as each other, I would hold the steaming mass of you in thin arms, unknowing of their frail bond, skin scraped by your dry curls, and believe there could never be a time when I would not have unpicked the loose stitched skin of me to keep you close and closer still, when I would not feel my hands unbidden steal their way beneath your frayed edges, shivering with the sheer delight of it, hoping that you would not speak. I wonder now at the heat of us, of it. I wonder at that fey creature that looked like me, all limbs and ribs and hair. I wonder that I ever felt so much of anything. And you, do you think of the brittle crack of that time? Do you think of how you kissed me, rough cut my lips with your teeth? Do you think of those red cast summer sounds and the seesaw creak of our breath? Do you wonder how we could have been written with such marks as tore the paper of our story? Do you see, in your mind's eye, a quarter century gone, the pale flashing of our youth? And do you wonder how I ever could have left you?
Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you for being our first reader this evening. Thank you for the rough cut of my lips with your teeth. Exceptional. Thank you so much.
My poem is called Her Skin. On warm summer days, the scars on her arms conjure up spiced cinnamon. She pushes her nose into those pink-white constellations set amongst the tan and breathes slowly in. On cold nights, thoughts of metal axe heads send shivers of warning. 2 hands, an axe must be gripped by 2 hands. She feels sorrow for the fingertip that was yellow-bagged or burnt or both. Her mother tells her she cried when she heard she was no longer complete. To know she was once considered perfect has her in awe.
Thank you so much, Sue, for being with us. Wow, just again, exceptional. I will have to admit that your poems came in, and even though it was a blind submission, in my head, I just went, that's Sue. Wow, thank you very much.
And I just want to say what an honor and privilege it was. And I mean that genuinely. Those phrases like that get bandied about and sometimes are superficial, but I genuinely mean I've enjoyed the whole process from start to finish. But I'd just like to point out that Damien did the lion's share of the work. You know, the attention to detail, the thought, and within putting in the section breaks, the design aesthetics of the journal. He just has a super eye, and that was all down to his. I think on Tuesday night I referred to him as the writing community's Jean-Paul Gaultier, and he truly has an eye for design. But we're here to also celebrate the contributors.
Squalls. Clouds blacken daylight. Two sisters put up child umbrellas and dance in the street as rain pelts. They swing blue panda brollies, upwards, downwards, side to side, while singing like Gene Kelly. A high gust of wind picks up their props, blows the domes away. The girls glance up as a silver sheet illuminates the sky. A bolt of thunder quakes. They race to the back door. Hold back. Slope inside. Get caught in the house squall instead. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. I wish we could have sang like Gene Kelly earlier on for Rona.
This is called Martial Landscape after a painting by Dennis Worthmiller. Soon all the water inside me will breach my skin, flooding the studio apartment. All our furniture will become sodden. I will turn on the heat, but it won't help. By dawn, the water will reach my ankle. By dusk, reeds will have sprouted around me. Now, in our bed, not touching, I know that you've decided to go, can't say it. I tried to hold you, but my hands crumble. Too long like this. I am bog. I am peat. Burn me for life. Lose a body in me.
It's just amazing to hear people read their own poems. Thank you for that, Mark.
So my poem is called Wind. 1. The howling wakes you at night, so you wear earplugs, drowning out the sounds of ancestors who start with a whisper, but it grows. 2. Their voices shout and curse. We had no rights. We died as we were born. We died as we gave birth. We died not knowing. We died giving. 3. You push your earplugs tighter as your ears fill with the wind that just won't calm. It will never die down now, rustling because 4. Another one died last night. She was only waiting at the bus stop and found cold, an ungentle breeze between this world and the next. 5. The wind whistles through the night and they ask, will my daughters be safe? When will we be in the eye of the storm?
Morning hike with windstorm and seabirds. Cliffs of Moher, County Clare. Up the lane from Doolin, cows graze ass windward, while a white horse pisses in a walled paddock by ruins where rooks swoop and croak in the early light. Hedgerows and brambles, pink and yellow cottages, closed and quiet on Sunday. Nearby, waves churned from briny depths, thunder like a threat, spew foam from notched eddies into the gusts, past a wire fence, into empty meadows. Jut of rock toothed crags, breath of ocean and seabird voices, breakers beating into the cliffs like fists on a chest. Sunlight brightens curtains of sea spray between low clouds scudding in from the relentless Atlantic. Runoff and muck from uphill pastures sucks at the misplaced boot. Brief shower, fleeting rainbow. Along the coast, a rising of life, movement, wetness. Freshwater streams rebuffed by gale force updraft hover mid-drop as if they've hit bottom, wash backward over the boggy fields. Below, a broken limestone shelf leans its shale shoulders into the cold, pounding emerald surf. Guillemots pirouette in the squall with grace. Fulmars glide along the cliff like ballerinas in dragon's breath. At a memorial along the trail where a man jumped, a sign with a hotline to call for help before hurtling oneself into a final abyss. I think of the ragged millions who left here hungry, such a rough, harsh choice. Their last view, this place of beauty and death, becoming themselves a tide of history, flotsam, crashing on distant shores, promising nothing but a slim chance, a glimpse at a better life.
Thank you, Matt. Beautiful phrases in that. I love the ballerinas and dragon's breath.
So this is afternoon tea. We gauged climatic conditions by the crispness of creases in immaculate cloth. When Danny was locked in the supply cupboard for the third time, something besides tea was brewing at 4 o'clock. Scones squatted on willow pattern plates like cumulonimbus. Hot crumpets soaked up her fury. The day my father received the letter from the bank, his tie was wrenched off in the flurry, and cupcakes skittered across plates as Granny passed them round, lips tightly insulated. And nothing was actually said after Aunt Cassie arrived unannounced, with bulging holdall and bruised cheek. But we caught the updraft from just poured cups, the microburst of raisins from a brooding balm brack. We chewed in silence, swallowing our questions. Consume or be consumed. And even now, in the levelling blast of a cold front, I picture the perfection of her Victoria sponge, warm the pot, form squall lines from my rock buns, and eat.
Thank you so much, Alice. Wow. Wow. My God, consumer be consumed. All those bruises hidden amid the commonplace. That's just extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to read After the Storm. Before the storm comes, you will have walked along the beach, your bare toes digging into the sand. You will have dodged nimbly back from the foaming surf. The sun will have danced off the tops of the waves, scattering diamonds that blind you. You will have cupped your hand over your eyes as you look out across the water, gasping the salt air down to the bottom of your lungs with enthusiastic breaths. Before the storm comes, you will have spread out a picnic blanket, shaking it high into the breeze, which will catch it and toss it into a flapping arc, and it will fall perfectly flat onto the sand. You will have been delighted by the fact that this stretch of beach has no seaweed lying in dried out strands, crusted with shells and alive with tiny flies that erupt when you walk over it. Before the storm comes, you will have popped the cork on that final bottle of cava from the amazing trip to Spain when you drove through the wine country, stopping at random vineyards, sipping and spitting the way the professionals do. The sports car you hired for the journey roaring back out into the traffic after each stop, with you telling yourself that you really were safe to drive, your purchases stashed behind your seat, liquid memories, and the wind shriving you of the effects of your sips as you tear down the motorways. Before the storm comes, you will have opened the vintage picnic basket that you convinced yourself you would use, but never did, now filled with all your favorite foods, a last supper of epic proportion, your appetite unequal to such surfeit of richness, terrines and quiches, rustic breads and crackers, tiny pastries. You will have done your best, though the food looks almost untouched, just slightly nibbled at, minutely ragged at the edges, the way you have been feeling, and the thought of yourself as a half-eaten croissant will have made you laugh aloud, alone. Before the storm comes, you will have taken off your too loose favourite clothes, because clothes were always precious to you, not for their style, though you always had your own, but because of the thrill you had in finding the perfect way to eat. You will have carefully folded them, the trousers along the crease and laid on top of your shoes, the shirt tucked into itself in some magical origami, the belt a coronet on top. As the storm comes, I will follow your trail of breadcrumbs across the sand, the footprints, paper plates spinning in the wind, a single sock hyperventilating. And I will think what you wanted me to think all along.
Fiona, thank you so much. Wow, so many, my God, so many lines to pick out. That's just incredible. Minutely ragged on the edges. My goodness. Wow. Thank you so much for contributing.
So this is 225 days. 225 days a year. Living with rain in Ireland is like living with chronic illness. It's always there, spectre presence looming in the background, trying to ruin plans. We make hay while the sun shines, and on the wettest days, sink under our duvets until the clouds disappear. A man who knows everything puts down his daily meal to tell me that we have more words for rain than the Eskimos have for snow. This time, I believe it. I give him 3 spoons for this exchange, fewer than usual. I gather the dog and my energy and pull on my coat. Through the open door, I prepare for the damp to invade my skin. The dawn fights through on this softest of days, and the fields refuse to be seen. I know the midday sun will come and burn the way clear, its power tantalizingly out of reach while the mist rewilds my hair. Today, we brave the weather. Thank you.
Wow, Lisa, thank you so much. Thank you so much. My God, you could hear it in your voice. You just gave us the meaning for every single word. Thank you so much. Just extraordinary again. See, this is why it was so difficult. Like Gaynor and I actually had a traffic light system. So we made a short list. I went then through it in terms of what was green, what was red, what was amber. Gaynor did the same thing. And we just then met in the middle and compared what we had and then fought over ones and then came back again. And Gaynor read it for me or I read it for Gaynor to see perhaps what we had missed or what, you know, but it was tough going. It was tough going. We nearly lost our friendship at one point, just temporarily, you know, but it felt tense.
It's like a landscape collapsing. Shoreless water embraces. Careful constructs between us undoing. Women click fingers, supplication to genius. Everything is getting smaller. A landscape collapsing. It comes, immeasurable water. echo of a mirror, the taste of failure. And marigolds flower in snow. Running with violets, reconnecting with ghosts. The past knots with knowledge of undoing. Violets reconnecting with shop window ghosts. And I'm taking photographs of a landscape collapsing.
My poem is called After the Deluge. Like a scene from an apocalyptic movie, the heavens opened to end our 10-day heatwave. Indra and Baal twisted the stopcock, while Zeus and Thor took charge of the lighting and sound effects. Our soft Irish rain, now biblical monsoon, for 90 minutes I was wonderstruck. A Noah without an ark, Gene Kelly without the lamppost, Frank McCourt without the squalor, the quiet man without an Abbey or a Maureen O'Hara. In the rhythm of the pouring rain, I was the Cascades without the stolen heart. And when the downpour ended right on cue, as determined by the weather gods of Apple and Google, I became Sisyphus, wielding a yard brush, his rock dissolved to water in a flooded garden shed. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michelle Maloney King, and the poem I'm going to read is called Climbers at Sunup. Compelling and uncomfortable, I move on to the next rung, over the lexical semantics of apostles, words lying and virtuous on an inherently uncomfortable binary ladder, seeking divorce or awaited balance. The next rung I am brave, of what lies ahead I am afraid. To destroy and build a new negotiation, I midged to the next rung as Bumblebee. I grotto sidewards and mime climbing the next 10 rungs for amusement and out of boredom. Being both clever and stupid, I have reached the top of the ladder. Ascending, my dead heart descends as living shrine, and indifference falls over the baying crowd. As compassion rises, my silent witness, Eureka, I shout as I measure the crown.
Just to remind you all that we will have a special poetry podcast episode, no longer just poetry, also including the prose. So on the 24th of this month of September on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google, Breaker, Podbean, Player FM, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Castbox, Podcast Addicts, or iTunes. That's something I say every day. We will have Eat the Storms, the special episode celebrating the storms, and hopefully that also will become a companion piece for people who are reading and want to hear the audio. And I think what's amazing is hearing everybody, as Gaynor already said, read their interpretation, their stress points, and also their accents, because that's really what makes this so interesting and so captivating. So before we go on to the next section, which is called That Space Between the Light and the Thunder, I'm Irish, so we always get our THs mixed up. I am going to play a short little video, and this video celebrates all our visual artists. So before it begins, just want to say a huge thank you to all our visual artists. I think it's really important that we get to celebrate them today, because again, we don't get to celebrate them on the podcast. So this is just a little montage of their absolutely incredible work.
Kia ora, everyone. Can you hear me?
Fantastically. Thank you for being with us at this ungodly
That's
hour.
right. I'm just glad my voice works because it was like 5:30 when I got up. So I'm going to read you my poem, Points of No Return. The spine beneath my arrow made mountains. Feathers depart the flesh of a runner as the air thins, goose, scale, quill. I leave a snow of my own making, something far too soft to exist here, whitening the vertebrae of bare bones hills. The socket of the valley pretends to see me, a swivel of mist fingering the lack. I let something true rise from the lung, creep to curl its gift in the bowl. I miss the visions too. At the top of a morning world, there's less and less breath to hold on. Close and distant thunder. How far would you climb to find the body?
Thank you so much. Incredible as always. The delicacy. Wow, I leave a snow of my own making. That line just floored me. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. I'm following a rock star here. This is Hanoi as the storm arrives. Today the streets are full of still people, sitting on steps, squatting on roads, slumped on scooters, draped on foot-high stools. We fan ourselves with hands, shirts, paper. We mop our skin with hands, shirts, paper. The usual sounds of life have drained away. We melt where we are onto the more rigid, like candle wax. Under the threat of a flame, we submit without will or caring. Lightning breaks the spell. Dark clouds, now embers, bellow overhead. Kindling whiter flashes. Light buzzes, cracks, becomes unbearable. Two-wheeled traffic halts for two-humped raincoats. The cafes swallow tables, stools. Patrons' awnings become umbrellas. Our sandals slip on concrete made glass.
Gillian, just incredible. I got lost there for a moment. Thank you so much. My goodness, kind of wanted to go on forever. Absolutely, absolutely intriguing. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Damien and Gaynor, for your attention to detail and incredible care. That's really made it special. Weather. Her small son carried the weather inside. It was in his eyes, storm petrol black. In his anorak, a windy orange. In his red hands, which now were rain, but snow only 5 minutes ago. His voice was yesterday's weather, the frown of hoping for sun. He was the only God she'd ever known. She patted his head, sent him back out to pick up his spade. The wooden horse, the horse that was a god to him and would remain so after she grew old and died.
Wow, his voice was yesterday's weather. Just incredible. Helemaal hartstikke bedankt. Ik ben echt blij dat je bent bij nu vanavond.
Ja,
dankjewel.
dankjewel.
Doei. Tot de volgende keer.
This is not in Kansas. She sprawls across a fur-covered throne on a rocky ledge, cantilevering mist, swallowing skyscrapers. She has no striped tights or sparkly red shoes. Her heart requires intense heat to burn, to be tumbled in a tropical typhoon at the equator of every wish.
Just so proud.
Damien, thank you very, very much. Just to say a few very, very quick words. Thank you. It's an absolutely beautiful, glossy book. It looks absolutely beautiful. And actually, of all of the books that I've seen for years, I think the attention to presentation, the sort of vivid colours, they're absolutely outstanding. The only other thing I wanted to say, Damien, was that when I wrote these poems, I'll just read one of the two poems in the book. I was under a lot of pressure. I felt as if I really had to write something strong. So what I did, I went into cheat mode and I read your first book, and I thought, how can I get into Damien's mindset, into his poetic mindset? There isn't any plagiarism at all. There isn't any copying, but there is the Damien use of repetition. There's a darkness there, like a lyrical darkness. So I would say when I read this, maybe some people will pick up on this, possibly. Right, okay. This is called None of Us Choose to Walk These Petroled Lines. None of us choose to walk these petroled lines. We walk along the edge in high heat at the cusp of ignition. There's no choice for us but to stare across raised fields, scrub dried to a crisp. No choice but to hang from moment to moment, taking each faltering step and stopping, pausing to be eyes, just eyes staring, thoughts too quiet, too close for surfacing, unraveling and hanging, just hanging, feeling as frail as that curled brown leaf, barely waiting a brittle stem. There's no choice after all, only this waiting. All of us bodies in fields with scarcely a crow or dropping hawk for company. Has it chosen us? This field, this grey glowering cloud advancing as we stand still listening, listless, hanging in our cause, as motionless as a plumb line. We wait and wait because we're told again not to burn with each pulse and throb of our living. Life chooses to hold this body in its grounding, illumined, choking in black, yet ceaseless in moving. We fall to our knees in these fields, burning. Thank you.
Wow. See, featured artist. The bard, just like incredible. All of us bodies in fields with scarcely a crow or drooping hawk for company. Wow. Thank you for being with us. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything you do, because we all do look to you and we want to be as shiny and bright and supportive as you are. Thank you for everything that you've given to us, Matt. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Oh, I'm enjoying this so much. It's lovely, isn't it?
I'm enjoying it too. It's so lovely hearing everybody read the poems. This is mine, Pools of Gold. For years, they told me to find the treasure. A positive mind would outswim any storm. And yes, I splashed, found the center of those dark lakes and emptied them, drank water awash with hope. From the outside, I was a giant, drenched in a flood, coping. but the waterfall always hits land, lies wide open, gathering its mass of years, a collection of rough reeds, armoured rocks, and life that darts to survive. Here I am, bobbing around, trying to stay afloat, with my journey tangled beneath me, slicing skin to drain memories of hope. A boat on choppy water may capsize, but could also ride the storm. The sun knows when to set fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. The waterfall always hits land. It's nice to have those reassurances of the things that always happen in the choppy waters.
My poem's a response to the Carpe Diem tradition. I don't really want to introduce it too much as it's quite a short poem, so any introduction would be longer than the poem. So I'll just dive right in. Winter. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. Andrew Marvell to his coy mistress. But night is long. It stretches like a ship's mast in darkness to some height you cannot fathom, with the infinite noise of waves beneath your feet and the weak boards you have nailed between. We cannot freeze the sun, but shut your eyes, and you will always have the night.
Hi, I was a single parent with an only child in lockdown, and the weekends I wanted to make different, so I built a cove in my front room. How to build a cove in your front room. Line the clothes area with silk scarves, so gulls, swoop and boats moor. Layer pebbles, sea glass and shells, and smooth the plush of cuddly stingray, whale, shark. Stir in marine books and puzzles. Ensure you're wearing an apron for safety over your bikini. Liberally add whale song, ocean soundscapes and beach boys. Serve with a generous glass of ginger wine, garnish with raspberries. Lie back and marinade in imagination. Thank you. Thanks. It's brilliant. I love it.
How wonderful. Thanks, Sarah. Just feel like a child again after listening to that. Perfect.
Breath for Stones. One image cracks our tongues. Live again and rage. When stains howl and the sky is caged, sing, don't pray. Gilded sects tell tales till we become the promised dead. A pack of knaves goes laboring uphill. Run, run away, follow your fool, your better wheel. Worms are winter. We are ants, burdened but strong, leaves hefted overhead. But dare we break step, bare our heads? Yes, we serve the storm, we praise the rain's stink and stage. When earth breaks, exposing splintered stone, we leap the barrow, leap and run. And when strength fades, exhale. Your song's a monument, each syllable a summer. As birds and butterflies forgive the vault, forgive your age. Our walls are also home, loamed and sage, and tell their histories while breath remains.
Beautiful, Jude. Thank you. The permanence of landscape and those syllables in summer. Beautiful.
Thanks for creating such a beautiful book and putting on this evening. It's amazing. This is what Victor Borges said for HP. The kitchen tap spurts in stifled giggles, then 3 guffaws punch the basin. Airlocks convulse and groan in pipes before the flow regulates into laughter is the shortest distance between two people, said Victor Borgia. Like the day after the West Brom game, a spring afternoon, we sat outside in the sun, drained our pints and eyes for 40 days and 40 nights. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Andy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this wonderful journal, Gaynor and Damien. It's a pleasure to be involved in it. This is Let It Come. Let it come, this rain that gushes in rivers, rolls down rooftops, glazes slates in a silicon coat, shining silver in cool autumn light. Let it pour, let it block drains till they foam and froth, flush filthy fluid into newfound floodplains on neatly paved drives. Let it bang on car roofs like dropping damsons, splitting and spoiling as ripe flesh bursts on unforgiving plates. Let it gather in pipes, fill them up fast so it waterfall tumbles over waxed front doors, jolting callers with an icy touch. Let it sweep soil from fields, drag sludge through hedgerows, force it down winding lanes like a spoiling slick. Let it drown trim lawns in a watery well. Let it rip amber leaves from trees with its weight. Let it blot out this scene with its dismal veil. Let it come. Let us shelter and hold hands the while. Thank you.
Fantastic, Adele. Thank you. Oh, it feels like we're all holding hands in this Zoom room, doesn't it? It's just lovely.
It really does. It really does. It's amazing to, because we did put it together with sort of loose themes in mind in terms of how it would all flow. But it's incredible to hear it being read and sort of to hear a fluidity between them. They are holding hands. There is a connection that flows through it, and that's quite incredible. And yeah, very emotional. So thanks, everybody.
I wrote this poem a long time ago, and I remember being very excited about it going to be the beginning of something very long and deep, which never happened. So this poem was always left dangling without any context. So thank you very much for giving it or placing it in a context. It's called Shark's Tooth. She finds it at the water's edge, where boulders reveal their soft red sores that pulse with the incoming tide. The colour of smoke, the colour of sky, it bites her hand as she raises her fist. The blood tattoos her arm. The sun is sinking on another shore, the fields ablaze with light. But here the cliffs throw only shadow. How far, from what mouth to this bleak Severn shore?
Wow, Ellie, my goodness, that reading brought it to a whole other level. I literally had hairs in the back of my neck as you said the blood tattoos her arm, and that final line. Wow, thank you so much. Sometimes in the end, that's what the poem is. You think you need to work around it and do something else and build it into something, and then somebody else reads it and sees it, and there you go, fits perfectly. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for giving us this chance to kind of celebrate the inaugural issue and to just hear all these lovely poems. Right, on the Ardnamurchan coast. I am not granite or gneiss, not metamorphic or volcanic, bound tight by pressure, given strength by a forging fire. I crumble. I am not the battering waves, unstoppable, changeable, scraping the stones clean, grinding them down to fine sand, washing it from every crevice. I lay in silence. I am not an anemone, feather soft, bruise colored, bending to the tide's will, grasping for the invisible when the water deigns to caress me. I am broken. I am not a barnacle, hardened against the bashing, glued tight to my place in the world. I do not grow close to my kind until we patter our terrain like a sea creature's scales. I hurt alone. I am a sea thrift, cutting sharp, unfurling small beauty. Tucked into shelter, I hold my head strong, with many eyes to catch the glittering light. Nodding in acceptance to the storm. I survive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Wow, you felt that wave there between the bash of what I am not and what I am. Just incredible. Thank you again. Tingles on the skin. Thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it.
No, I just wanted to thank everyone. This is really wonderful. On a personal note, this came at a really good time. The end of August, I had a very disturbing conversation with a cousin of mine with whom I'm very close, and she told her survivor story for the very first time on this, something terrible things that happened on the side of the family I thought was safe. So I'm processing a lot right now and trying to support her, moving her in the right direction as well. She's a single mom. And your work has really kept me from losing it completely and, keeping my grip. And I've got 2 kids I'm raising and I've got to keep it together. My husband's been very supportive, but I did want you to know that your work has made me feel, I just feel part of a community. I feel supported just in not being alone in the complexity and difficulties that get thrown at us and the bad things that happen to us along the way. So thank you. So it's a full moon tonight. It is. You did say that something about the migraines, which, yeah. So my poem Eclipsed, very nicely poem there. Sad side of the moon, vital to tides, in shadow, nothing prepares her. Exclusion cold and brutal, dead stars still shivering, shine.
Mo, seriously, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for your presence and thank you for realizing that we are a community and we are connected, that life is so extraordinarily difficult. It's difficult to figure out how to move on, how to make steps. The only things that we really have, I suppose, are these anchors. And tonight, I really feel blessed that you all feel like an anchor. You feel like an anchor for me too. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You take care, okay?
Hi everyone. I feel a bit emotional after all that. I just want to echo what Mo said. It's wonderful to be part of this tribe, and yeah, just you've made a beautiful thing, you and Gaynor. So thanks, Jamie. Here's my poem, Stargazing Beyond Las Vegas. We just made the sunset, saw canyon reds arc to yellows, then night burst in a white crown of stars, a great wash of constellations, old light, old gods. After Vegas, I knew I would always want this, you by my side, submerged in the heavens. Forget the neon, the plastic, the X-rated mags, the dirt-filled motel room in that ruined city of meadows with no meadows to show. Only pimps, tourists and barflies, dollar signs flashing their hard, cold glow. There are sandstorms massing a few miles out, threatening to drown us both. But let's forget, turn our backs on dust and broken things, try to touch every planet, swim again in stars.
Wow, Thank you so much, Lynn. My goodness, to be in Vegas surrounded by all these tacky stars, neon lights, slot machines, and yet to still be able to turn your back and look up and stargaze. Thank you so much. You're incredible. Thank you for being with us. Love you.
Hi, everybody. I just want to echo what everyone else is saying. This is just such a love fest. It's just wonderful. And I will stop there or I'll start crying. Okay. My poetry assistant is here helping me to read. So hopefully this goes okay. This is called Solar Storm. You are a solar storm. Flares shoot from your eyes. Your hair, a golden corona, electric and alive, almost hissing like Medusa's snakes. Could we bottle your energy, we'd power the world until you slept. And then I'd sleep too, holding you close, satellite to your star, warmed by your glow. Thank you, everyone.
Meryl, thank you so much. Golden Corona. Oh, wow. Sometimes that is what reading your poetry is like. You know, it's this warm, fuzzy light. You're drawn into it. And I've been following you and a fan of you, since about 2014, when we were both about 10. And now we're only 25, so it's not that long, but thank you so much.
I'm a little bit older. I'm 30.
Oh, you're 30. Oh, okay. Sorry. Apologies. Thank you, Meryl, for being with us.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. The journal is absolutely stunning, and I really appreciate being published in it.
Can we talk about the backdrop and congratulate you on the backdrop as well, please?
Oh, thanks. I'm hoping to use it for the cover of my new manuscript. So this is DNA from my dad. I hold your head in my hands, watch the light ebb from your eyes. I breathe for you, my breath, your breath. I can taste the cancer, Daddy, but I can't bring you back. The spiral is little more than a curve outward from a central point. Night and the pure presses patterns into our backs. Here, memory lingers thick among creosote, diesel fumes, brackish water. Mooring lines creak as they are pulled taut and released. Spider webs balloon in the breeze. Above us, the Milky Way unfurls. Once more, it is your finger that trails galaxies. Once more, it is your stories that spill from my lips. We are all drawn toward a fixed center, the hub of a spider's web, water as it cycles down a drain, the empty eye of the hurricane. Thank you, everyone, very much.
Tara, thank you so much. My goodness. So difficult to hold the emotions back. My goodness, the intimacy of that, the fact that it felt like you brought us into that conversation between the pair of you. Thank you so much for letting us in. That was incredible, really. Thank you. Wow, it's a good job we're coming toward the end. I might be a ball at the end of this. My God, this is why it was so difficult. They are just incredible, incredible, incredible pieces of writing and visual art.
Noswaith. Oh, wow. With listening to everybody, I've done a rookie mistake of losing my own poem. Thank you so much for tonight and for everybody's words. And this is one day. One day you'll thank the leaves for turning, praise the mountains for warning, though there's little chance our paths will change. You'll thank the rain beads falling, earth fragrance freeing herself from stone, the weather gods that will find you alone. You'll thank the roots for halting, the seeds for waiting, and the orchestra of scents that will point the way. One day you'll thank the air for lifting, the echo leaving, the morning after, when you learnt to love the rain. Diolch. Thank you.
Beautifulness, thank you. I think we're all thankful for autumn.
It's great to be a part of this reading, a part of this journal. I'm really enjoying just listening and also following along with such a beautiful. So this is my contribution, a poem in place of a funeral for Aunt Lynn. Without procession, there is no structure as substitute for tradition, no meaning conveyed through ritual. Without communion, there is no comfort in shared memories, no embrace to soften falling tears. With poems, there is sorrow, in their reading fellowship as consolation.
Thank you, Ryan. What a beautiful tribute.
Hi there. I feel quite starstruck being in the room with all these amazing poets. It's been a wonderful evening, so thank you, Damien and Gaynor. My poem's called Scattered Ashes. We woke early, took the path down to the sea to say our goodbye. No ceremony, a simple gesture. We traced the steps of happier days, saw the same horizon, the same coastal line. The deed done, we sat for a while. The sun broke through the clouds, and I smelt the salt on the wind, felt you stir on the distant cresting waves. Thank you.
Beautiful, Helen. What a lovely send-off for someone. Thank you.
To be here, I'm so happy to be here, and it's just a very beautiful thing to be part of this community of storms, eating storms, beating back storms, being in the storm together, holding. And thank you very much, Gaynor and Damien. This is such a good thing to be doing in the world that needs good things. My poem, Storm Song. Raised by the storm that keeps you from me, I lift the night's tears from the bed that loves you and bring them to this shore here to set them adrift. Before me, the cormorant, a white-throated arrow. She shears the tormented spray, and the light of 1,000 gems scatters. The beauty of this and the memory of you pierces my heart, cleaves it into pieces. I spill them in Shurmal, together with your name, knowing that the thunder they begin to sing will haunt this ebb forever. Tapalai. Thank you.
Oh, it was lovely to hear that. Thank you so much.
Oh, this is such a beautiful evening. Can I just tell you quickly that it was like my writing prompt for the poem that I wrote. It's a sort of a bittersweet little story. So about 6 years ago, there was a woman who moved to my town called Diana, and she became the rector of one of the local churches, and she came with her 2 dogs and her cat. Her cat was called Cuthbert, and Cuthbert installed himself as the church cat and basically ruled that empire. Everyone in town got to know Cuthbert. He was quite stern. He had opinions about everyone. If you came too close, he would sort of slap you away with his paw. And so you always felt really privileged if you were allowed to touch him. His favorite place in the church was the heated floor in one of the little chapels. I don't go to this church. This is just like everyone knows his stories. But then earlier this year, Cuthbert was quite an old cat. I never knew this. But earlier this year, Cuthbert went to lay in the church garden, one of his other favorite spots. And he lay down in the sun and he fell asleep and he never woke up again. He just died in the sun in one of his favorite places. And Diana found him and buried him. And it really, obviously, lots of us were very moved because Cuthbert was a superstar of our local community. But it really moved me, and it made me think about a good death and about what I would like my death to be like, which sounds a bit melancholy, but actually it was a lovely thing to think about. And so that's how I ended up writing this poem. On the day that I die, I want to be sleeping in the sun, grass cradled, daisy crowned. Let fragrant, soft air carry my final breath to the welcoming clouds. On the day that I die, let my sun-warmed body be held by my beloved, hand holding hand. Let flowers be laid upon closed eyes, green in the dark, and let the blackbird sing a lullaby. On the day that I die, I want grass to grow strangely about me, weaving a whisper shroud. Oh, and let the wild flowers wind around my fingers, cornflowers and honesty. Let nests and burrows be made around me. Let my leaving be a welcoming. On the day that I die, I want rain to fall, full pelt, violent, a sudden baptizing storm with violet clouds and bright lightning. Let the scent of dust-dry earth rise surprised, intoxicating as incense, and brief like passing memories. On the day that I die, I want the sea to come for me at last. I want the wind to raise my bone and flesh home up high. And then, after the storm, under the setting sun, let someone remember with star-bursting gladness, I am not lost at all.
Beautiful, Vicky. Thank you. I'm so thankful of the writing community that spreads around the world, and it's just been a lovely night. I'm going to hand back over to Damien for the final words. Thank you all.
Vicky, that was always going to be the last. That was always going to be how it ended. We knew it the minute we read it. Thank you for bringing us to the end of the journey so beautifully, so tenderly in such a reading. Now, before we go, we do have a little bit of time. So one other person is in the room who read when we were in Dublin, and I think perhaps it could be a fitting story to leave us with. So just checking in with Michelle Walsh. Michelle, would you like to open the box of Quality Street and treat us all to your story?
Sure, Damien, no problem. I hope it's not, I hope everyone's okay, are they? Because it's a little bit, it's not a poem, so it's a little bit longer. So as long as everyone has the attention span, I'm good to read. Thanks.
Just before you start, let me just say that everybody's attention has just woken up, focused on you, gone, oh my God, we need to pay attention because this girl is wearing one of the coolest blouses that anyone has ever seen. You don't even need to unveil the Quality Street. We're here with you.
It's actually a dress, Damien. I have to go out for
even
dinner.
Better.
Right, listen, I'll read quickly. Thank you very much, everyone. It's lovely to meet all the people I didn't meet at the Casino Marina, which was a beautiful day. Thank you, Damien and Gaynor. It's just been such a pleasure to be part of this. I know I speak for all of us when I say that. So my little piece is called Indulge Me Not. It's a piece of flash fiction. It's about 600 words. So I heaved my body forwards to reach for the tin of sweets, a gift from the baby shower. I shook it. Candy-coloured chocolates rustled against one another, a happy sound. I slid my hand onto the metal lid. Just one would not make a difference. I recited a familiar mantra to myself from years of yo-yo dieting and self-sabotaging behavior. I had battled and struggled, but eventually wrestled my fickle weight under control. I took unctuous pleasure in sliding skinny jeans over slender thighs, grateful for the sensation of coarse denim scratching stretched, sensitive skin. I enjoyed the sound of buttons closing easily over a flat stomach with a certain smugness, satisfied to hear the air gurgle through my empty intestine. Then I fell into a state there was no diet for. I watched in dismay as my stomach bloomed and swelled. Pregnancy hormones reactivated my sugar cravings, but I employed all the diet tricks. No sugar in the house, avoided middle aisles of supermarkets, meditated. But the cravings rose from deep inside me like waves, so intense and strong, I needed to sit down to ride out the storm. For 8 long months, I purified my maternal food supply, drank water, so much water, ate vegetables, drank milk. The blandness bored me. I unfurled the purple wrapper in my hand. It opened like the petals of a flower. The covering was folded and pleated like taffeta around the sweet. It crinkled in my hands. The sound was musical, like piano keys tinkling in tune-up. A layer of silver foil inside the wrapper guarded the oval-shaped chocolate. The outer purple wrapper was lightweight and transparent without it. It floated to the floor as I placed the sweet into my mouth. I wanted to suck it to make it last, for the taste to linger, but the chocolate was already coating my teeth and I bit on it hard and swallowed. The sugar hit my bloodstream quickly. I felt it flow through my veins. I wanted more. I lifted the tin from the floor and rested it on my bump for ease of access and fumbled my fingers inside it. It closed over an orange wrapper. It scraped against my palm and did not peel away cleanly. I picked at the shiny, silvery fragments embedded in the semi-melted chocolate left too close to the fire. I scraped them away with my nails. The sugar hit was more intense this time. Tiny pockets of honeycomb fizzed as they melted on my tongue. I opened another before I swallowed the chocolate in my mouth. I ate so many. The floor around me was littered with torn wrappers, like the remnants of a frenzy of present opening on Christmas morning. My stomach churned, but a warm, familiar glow of relaxation spread throughout my body. A soothing sensation, calming, numbing glucose tentacles reached into every part of me. Dry burning wood spat and crackled in the open fire. I watched the flames rise. Red tongues leapt high, licked the black chimney breast. The heat warmed my heavy, swollen feet. Beads of slow sweat prickled my chest and upper arms. I looked at the floor in disgust and gathered the empty wrappers in my hands, squashing and compressing them into one giant wad and tossed them into the fire. They hissed and squealed in protest like living things. The silver foil tinged the flames green as it burned, the colour of envy, the colour of my favourite sweet wrapper, the colour of the glowing phone screen when he called. But he had stopped calling. The phone lay dark and silent, watching me as I stuffed chocolate after chocolate into my mouth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We needed that. Thank you for the chocolate. Thank you for eating the storms. Thank you for braving the storms. Please, if you'd all like to come off just before I give a little chat at the end, if you'd all like to come off mute and give yourselves an incredible round of applause. You are all bloody fantastic.
Thanks for the chocolate, Michelle.
We're gonna have to get Quality Street to sponsor the next edition, Damien.
Everyone in the audience will get a box of Quality Street before we begin. You begin it, you end it the same way. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men and women, non-conformers and non-believers, gender X and gender equals, we have now reached the end of this very special live international launch for The Storms, our new journal of poetry, prose and visual art. A huge thank you to every single one of you who joined us this evening. A huge thank you to everyone who contributed, who made this inaugural issue what it is. Bloody outstanding. The comments that have been coming in over all social media platforms over the past few weeks has just been incredible. You put in the work, you put it out there, you hope that people are going to like it. But at the same time, I think Gaynor and I kind of knew what we were dealing with, the quality that we were handling here. And it was just exceptional. So thank you to everyone who contributed. Thank you to everyone who's bought the journal. You are fantastic. If anybody hasn't bought the journal, head on over to www.eatthestorms.com and there you will find the journal shop. Here in the Republic of Ireland, The Storms is available in Charlie Burns bookstore in Galway, in Books Upstairs and the Winding Stair bookcase in Dublin, and also in the Secret Bookshelf in Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland. As I said earlier, on the 24th of September, Eat the Storms, the poetry podcast, will incorporate poetry and prose, and we will have as many of the contributors taking part as possible so it becomes a companion piece for those with the journal. My name is Damien B. Donnelly. My sparkling sub-editor, helper, guide, light, friend has been Gaynor Kane. You are all incredible. The support that you have given each other, that you have given us, that we have received through this has made it all worthwhile, made it all possible, made going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up at 6, editing on trains, on buses, sitting on 18th century steps in neoclassical buildings, has made it all worthwhile. Thank you so much. Got to end with the only phrase that I can end with. Please, everybody, stay morally poetic. I've lost my voice.
Amazing, well done.
And Damien, Gaynor, everyone.
And we got it in with, oh, look, under 2 hours and everything. Like, talk about keeping to a schedule. Thank you, everybody.